You're watching The Attorneys, a paid advertisement brought to you by the law firm of Hollis, Wright.
Car crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with The Attorneys of Hollis Wright.
Hello and welcome to The Attorneys. I'm Art Franklin. On this show, we're going to examine one of the fastest changing sectors in American business, sports. That's right, we're going to examine that as we look at teams and players and the agents and the billions of dollars in compensation when you start talking about the business of sports, specifically sports in Alabama. We'll get to that in just a second. But first, we want to remind you that lawyers for Hollis Wright standing by right now. They'll take your call at 1-844-LAW-TALK. That's 1-844-LAW-TALK. It's a free, confidential call. They'll be on the phones throughout the show. So let me get to my partner on the show, the managing partner at Hollis Wright, Josh Wright. Good
How
to
you
see
doing, my man?
Yes,
You good?
I'm doing good.
Okay, so did you know this?
What's
and this
that?
is something we're going to talk about today. That as of 2025 in this country, with NIL and revenue sharing at universities, it has reached above $2.2 billion as an industry. It is one of the fastest growing industries. It is one of the most confusing industries. Sure. And the beautiful part about this is we have an expert, Madison RIggins, here with Fortiff Law Partners, who's going to be here. She's previously been on the show before, but she's going to unwrap this whole thing for us.
Yes.
Because this is a ever-growing area. I feel like every single day I turn on the news, there's something new. It's a coach saying, I can't operate within the confines of this, or we have to change the automatic transfer portal, or there has to be a change made legislatively. Just unwrapping this, I'm excited about.
Yeah, I am so excited. Art, Josh, thank you guys again for having me back on the show. It truly is such a pleasure.
So talk with us just kind of to start. The business of sports is really what the show is about. And it's going to include everything from intellectual properties to also NIL and transfer portal and some of the other things. But talk to us a little bit about like how you got into this. I know you come by it naturally, and that's allowed. But how did you get into this area? Because it's such a unique area.
So I will say it's really something that I stumbled upon. So I am currently a second-year attorney here in Birmingham at Fortiff Law Partners. And it was really just such a natural fit to what Fortiff was already doing. So Fortiff was actually started 8 years ago by our managing partner, Bing Edwards, who was on the show with us last time. And he had a really unique vision in that he wanted to do things differently. He wanted to practice law differently. He wanted to interact with clients differently. And that really just shaped the way that our firm grew. And we grew from one attorney to 11 just by basically seeing what it was our clients needed and also our own special interests. So we really work off of this idea that we want to make our clients better, we want to make our communities a better place to live and work, and in doing so, we're able to fortify our clients, which is actually where the name Fortiff derives from. And really where sports fit in all of that is I saw that, hey, my firm is already doing things in the tax space. We're doing things in economic development. We're doing things related to estate planning, business, nonprofit, and these are all things that athletes don't always think about, but it really affects them on a day-to-day. And like you said, I grew up just an absolute avid sports fan. My dad is kind of the one who introduced me to that. And really from there, I was just like, well, if I can combine the two things I love most, why not?
Have you heard of infectious personalities before?
That is
She's got it right here. No,
Y'all
I mean,
are too sweet.
well, no, and I mean that. All right, so sports law. Let's unwrap it a little bit. Like, first, before we kind of get into NIL and revenue sharing at these universities and some of the legislation that's in the works right now, just kind of explain to us a little bit about sports law itself and kind of what that entails.
Yeah, so sports law is really different, and that's not one specific area. So when we think about torts, criminal law, contracts, or property, those are going to be specific areas. Sports law is really different, and because it's a mirage of all those things. You're combining all those things together, and what makes you a sports lawyer is when you're representing these unique group of clients. So whether you're representing an athlete, a trainer, a coach, an institution, a conference, or even a stadium, you can then call yourself a sports attorney. But kind of in the context that we're going to talk about today, and what most people typically think of it when they're thinking of college athletics, is you're usually thinking of coaching and player contracts. You're also going to think about dispute resolution. And you're also going to talk about intellectual property and trademark branding, which I'm really excited to talk about because I brought one of my other partners, Raymond James, along to help us talk about that later on.
And we'll see him in maybe segment 3.
Yeah.
So think about this. Every morning I turn on the news, I'm telling you, there is either a lawmaker or a court or a case that has become relevant in the media that's impacting the landscape of this. And it's just changed how we look at sports. It almost appears as if it is a professional organization now, like the NFL or the Major League Baseball or the NBA. It's pretty crazy how ever evolving this is.
You're right, Josh. This is so fascinating when you think about it, and it's changing all of the time. And I may be dating myself when I think about this. First, I think about Jerry Maguire as an agent. But it was really on contracts. But you talked about it, Madison, when you start talking about sports law, and whether you represent the athletes or the coaches, as we saw what happened in one neighboring state, it's more than just the contract itself. As you start working out all these other details to take care of that agent, that player.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, it's just so important that these student athletes, really all athletes, but specifically student
now,
athletes. Yeah, I mean, you got to make sure you're protecting yourself.
Yeah. For sure. All right, so talk to me a little bit. Let's unwrap this concept. I saw in the firm facts that were put together kind of in the pre-production side of this show, $2.2 billion in NIL and revenue sharing as an industry itself. I know that will only grow over time. Let's address both those. What is the difference between NIL, an acronym we all hear all the time, and then also revenue sharing with these universities and how they interplay with one another to pay these student athletes?
Yeah, so I'm so happy you brought that up because the terms are often used interchangeably, but they're really not the same thing. They work together in the sense that revenue sharing and name, image, and likeness, or NIL as we so lovingly call it, they make up the entirety of an athlete's compensation package. But really, in order to understand the differences, it's important to note that revenue sharing is actually coming directly from the institutions. That's something that is new as of 2024, thanks to the NCAA v. House settlement. That was one of the terms of that agreement. And basically what you see there, that's going to be a guaranteed number that you're negotiating on the front end. It's usually going to be paid out over the course of a season, a semester, or even a year. And that's a number that not all student athletes get because basically there's a cap now. So where it used to be that you only had NIL, which name, image, and likeness, that basically means that you're looking at third-party brand deals. So those are going to be your endorsement deals and things of that nature. Now when you're thinking about the salary cap when it comes to revenue sharing, you want to make sure that you're kind of advocating for yourself. Usually a lot of that money is going to go to your revenue generating sport. So like football, and in some cases, it's going to be basketball or baseball at some schools. But your non-revenue generating sports and your Olympic sports, that's not to say you can't get revenue sharing, but it's usually kind of going to only be that 1% of student athletes there that are going to get revenue sharing there.
Here's, I'm trying to wrap my arms around it as well. With revenue sharing, I'm thinking that's more than one person.
Yes.
NIL may be just me.
Yeah.
My name, image, and likeness.
Yes. So, and let me break it down a little bit further. So I talked a little bit about this $20.5 million cap. And basically what that looks like is the universities usually have several hundred athletes, so 500 or 600 athletes. You want to think about it in the same way that you're going to think about a salary cap for the NFL or the NBA, in the sense that you now have this $20.5 million that you can spread amongst all these athletes. Well, that works well in a professional organization because NFL, you're talking about a 53-man roster, 16-man practice squad. NBA, you're looking at a 15-man roster and 3 people on a 2-way contract. But Auburn, for example, has 500 student athletes roughly. Alabama has around 600. How do you spread out $20.5 million evenly and make sure that everybody feels justly compensated? And then once you actually are breaking it down by the numbers, so a lot of schools are typically doing 75% football and then breaking down the other sports kind of based off popularity at their individual schools, how do you make sure that everyone, you know, in football, for example, is getting what they feel is a fair number? For NIL, on the other hand, you're going to actually look at different things like social media. You're going to look at what is their brand recognition in that area, and that's where you can start getting some of those endorsement deals and those brand deals.
All right, so I know we're going to break, but when we come back, I want to talk about an issue, which is what happens when a student athlete leaves, because this happens often, and does their NIL travel with them? Does revenue sharing travel with them? I know Madison's going to be able to unpack that. It's a question that I get all the time with my buddies, like, hey, this person left. What happens to that contract? And the other thing I want to unwrap that's really important is any of the information you see online about what people are making for NIL and revenue sharing actually accurate? Does anybody really know whether this stuff is true or not? We'll talk about that when we get back.
Just by that alone, you can tell that we've got so much to unpack here. I really hate to go to break because I'm so fascinated by this conversation about sports law in Alabama and this talking to Madison. She's amazing. We're going to take a break, though, to do that. We want to remind you, though, you can reach someone at Hollis Wright right now. There's a QR code on your screen. Just go ahead, scan it. It's easy, it's fast, and it'll get you in contact with someone at Hollis Wright to answer whatever question you may have. It may even be about NIL, but go ahead and give them a call. We'll take a break. We'll continue this discussion, sports law in Alabama, right after this.
Here's some good information from our firm to you. Hollis Wright recently launched the Law Talk podcast. With podcasts becoming so popular, this will be a simple way to provide our loyal viewers with more opportunities to access information about important legal topics and to learn more about our firm and how we can help you if the need ever arises. There are many ways to access the Law Talk podcast. You can simply scan the QR code on your screen. Also, episodes are always available on the Hollis Wright YouTube channel, as well as on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you consume your podcasts. Just search up Hollis Wright in the Law Talk podcast. Don't wait, take advantage and listen today. Thanks for watching The Attorneys, and we know you'll enjoy the Law Talk podcast.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show in 2011, my goal was to do what our firm does best. Help people answer questions related to real-world legal issues they have in their lives in a way that's not intimidating to talk with a lawyer. If the issue is important to you, it's equally important to us, and we're ready to talk with you at no cost.
Yeah, oftentimes people are confronting various legal issues in their lives that really run the gamut of a lot of different legal practice areas such as bankruptcy, criminal law, civil law such as personal injury, divorces, domestic relations. And to be able to have a show once a week that covers those practice areas and answers people's questions in those areas, that's really the main objective of the show.
We use the resources of the many lawyers at our law firm to create a plan that has a lasting impact for each person that calls or texts. And we also give back to the community at the same time. We are here to serve you, the viewer, each week on The Attorneys.
Addiction kills hope.
But at Bradford, it all changes here.
Experience the difference
that proven treatment can make.
Find recovery. Find community.
at Bradford.
You're watching The Attorneys, a paid advertisement brought to you by the law firm of Hollis Wright.
And welcome back. You are watching The Attorneys, and you can watch us throughout the week. Make sure you watch us on all social media platforms, on X, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. You'll find great content on those social media platforms. But we're discussing the business of sports, and we want to jump right back in it because there's so much to talk about.
All right, so when we went to break, I kind of highlighted the fact I want to talk a little bit about this circumstance that we see in the media. I know you see it with your team, I see it with my team, where student athletes decide because they can hit the portal, really, it seems like whenever they want to, do they have to pay back revenue sharing? Do they have to pay back NIL deals that they've negotiated at one school when they go to another? How does that work? And I know it's probably not an easy answer, but how does it work?
So I will say it really all depends on what the contract says. So that's why it's so important to engage an attorney or a reputable agent early on in the process, because there are a lot of these contract clauses. You know, everybody gets really hung up on the numbers. Everybody gets so caught up in the excitement of recruiting that people really forget that these are legally binding contracts that have the ability to really affect your life, your finances, and your opportunities to grow, not only in your athletic career, but also in your professional career. So where it really kind of starts to take form, what are these schools enforcing it? As you know, in a lot of contracts, they'll usually have mediation, arbitration clauses. So some of that's kind of happening behind the scenes that we're not really seeing, but because no one really wants that bad reputation of, hey, we're going to sue our players. You kind of just want it to be a clean cut. I think something that you're going to start to see in the near future here is probably very similar to coaching buyouts, where if a coach goes to another school before the end of their contract, that the new school usually will have to pay the buyout to the old school. You always hear about the school having to pay a buyout to a coach, but a coach also usually does have to pay a buyout to his school. I think that's something that you may start seeing with player contracts. So it's just one of those things that the laws continue to evolve on it, and we're really hoping that we'll get some legislation either on the state or federal level here real soon.
Are you doing agency work too on y'all's end? I want to let you highlight that just a little bit, because I do think that part of this show is educating people, but it's also making sure people recognize if they are student athletes or parents of student athletes that have a trajectory to play in college, there are firms out there like your firm that can help in that respect.
Yeah, so we're doing a little bit of work in that. It's something that we're slow rolling on the front end because we want to make sure that we're very intentional, not only with the clients that we work with, but making sure they're also building those relationships with the schools and different teams of that nature. So I'll tell anyone that is a student athlete that's looking to get in this space, engage an attorney as early as possible. I mean, obviously, you don't need to be in elementary or middle school doing it, but once you start hitting high school, if your stats start looking pretty good in any sport, and you're thinking, okay, I may want to start going to some of these camps, and you start procuring some interest, start talking to an attorney, start talking to a licensed agent. The first thing you want to do is make sure that whoever you're talking to is legally able to represent you in the state that you either are going to reside in or that you hope to one day play in. So for example, in Alabama, we have something called the Alabama Uniform Athletes Agent Act, and that basically ensures that student athletes and professional athletes as well are being protected. So if anyone ever has the intent to get paid for advising an athlete on what to do with their finances, their businesses, or where to go to school, you need to make sure that you go and register. It's not too hard to do. It's a very simple process. But also, I usually recommend that if you're a student athlete, get somebody with a legal background. You want to make sure you have somebody that has some sort of experience in contract negotiation as well as contract review. That's something our firm has done for years, so it's a very natural fit to kind of bring that agency side of things into it. But you also really want to look at the relationships that people have. You want to not only look at the relationships that people have with the institutions that you may that you may want to one day attend, but you also want to make sure that they have really good relationships with their current clients. And you want to make sure their current clients are satisfied, because at the end of the day, it's important to remember that attorneys and agents work for you. And the last thing you really want to consider, because this is the big one, is the cost of service. Now, you are asking for a premium service, so you do need to pay a premium price, but you also need to do your research to make sure you're not getting railroaded. I can't tell you how many athletic directors and NIL directors and coaches I've spoken with who said they've had students who are out here paying agents 20% and that they can barely read a contract themselves. If any agent is telling you that they are charging more than 10 or 15%, which is the industry standard for marketing and NIL contracts, you need to run. But I will also tell you, when it comes to revenue sharing.
This is why we have this show.
Exactly.
Right there, that information. I like that.
But I'll tell you, when it comes to revenue sharing, you really should even be negotiating a lower rate, because for the NFL, they only allow you to take 3% as an agent. NBA only allows you to take 4%. MLB, they don't have a set number, but industry standard is about 4 to 5%. So like here at Fortiff, we're currently charging 4% for contract review for revenue sharing and 8% for NIL and marketing agreements. That's not to say it won't change, but we like to keep up with industry standards.
So think about this. You're a parent on the couch of an athlete watching the show right now, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm completely overwhelmed because I have people calling me trying to recruit my student athlete, yet I don't know where to go. This is one of the reasons why we have this show.
I would be beating down Madison's door right now if I was that parent at home. But as sports fans, we're not innocent bystanders here. We're being affected by all of this as well. When we're seeing the cost of tickets going up, there's a talent tax out there as well. Can you talk about how that all plays into this?
Yeah, so universities and coaches are having to be very intentional and strategic about how they're essentially going to overcome this $20 million deficit. So I talked about that $20 million salary cap, for lack of a better term, that's out there, and that's just going to continue to go up over the next decade. So what you're seeing is both coaches and athletic directors trying to think about different ways that they can make sure they're staying ahead of the game. So for some schools, like you're saying, they're introducing this talent tax and basically passing off the price to consumers in the form of rising costs in merchandising and ticket sales. Players area, the basketball tournament, that's a great example of how NIL has really affected the way that we're now participating in different sporting events, because teams are now going and participating in that because the players area is basically saying, hey, we will come and we will pay you, and we'll pay your players some form of NIL if you come and participate in it. You're also seeing schools like Georgia Tech and Auburn moving their home non-conference games to third-party neutral sites because these stadiums are saying, hey, we'll pay you
now you know why.
Yeah, we'll pay you several $1 million if you come here and pay, and then that's now money they don't have to overcome. But also they're trying to re-engage their donors, because people forget this is also really affecting our Olympic sports and our Title IX sports, because our revenue-generating sports, those are the ones that are actually funding the Olympic sports, the Title IX sports, as well as your administrative costs. So all those perks, like the nice facilities and everything, those are things that are all going to start going away.
So I know we're going to break right now, and we're going to come back with Raymond James, who works at Fortiff with Madison, and we're going to talk about a whole different area of this law, which is a little more technical but super important, which is the intellectual property of NIL and how you protect your NIL moving forward. And so I'm excited Raymond's going to come on and join us in the third segment.
Yes, I'm very excited.
We're going to save as much time for that. So I'm just going to tell you, call Hollis right now. 1-844-LAW-TALK. Attorney standing by. It's free, it's confidential. We'll be right back.
Thank you for watching The Attorneys each Sunday night, where we come to your living room to provide free legal advice in a confidential, off-air setting. Unfortunately, with the number of calls, texts, and emails that come in during the show, we can't always get to everything. But know this, Hollis Wright is open all week long. You call us at 844-LAW-TALK and we're going to answer your question for free. Thank you for watching The Attorneys, and we look forward to seeing you and talking to you soon.
If this place could talk, it wouldn't. It would sing and celebrate all of our stories of addiction recovery, victory, and community. This is Bradford Health Services. It all changes here.
You're watching The Attorneys, a paid advertisement brought to you by the law firm of Hollis Wright.
And welcome back. You are watching The Attorneys, and we're talking about the business of sports.
Absolutely, and we're so lucky because we now have another guest with us, Raymond James with Fortiff, who is one of the law partners with Madison and her entire group, to talk about one side of this business that a lot of people may not even really understand exists, which is the intellectual property component of this whole thing and protecting name, image, and likeness. Easy for me to say, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, welcome to be on the show. We're glad to have you here.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you got into IP work and kind of how this plays into what you do at Fortiff.
Wow. So I've been doing intellectual property work for about 8 years, and it started in law school for me. It began in a boutique firm, doing trademark work, patent work, copyright work. I spent some time at Moffitt Cancer Center doing the institutional intellectual property tech transfer office. So I worked in their M2 Gen Lab. And then from there, I came up to Fortiff and I took a hold of the IP practice. And so we do the full suite of trademarks, copyrights, patents, as well as trade secret work to provide businesses and companies the protection of their ideas.
How does this play into NIL and this concept of revenue sharing, the stuff we've been talking about with Madison? How does this all play in, and why is it important to have someone that has intellectual property background in order to help you?
Yeah, just like a business, when you become an athlete, you take on a persona, a brand. And so your name, image, likeness, that's what we most often hear about. You also have your voice, you also have your signature. Those things become assets that when you have a brand, you can commercialize them. And so in the space of NIL, it's important for athletes to understand that they become a brand. And when that happens, when it comes to merchandising, when it comes to negotiating license agreements for whatever purpose in the sports space, being able to protect your brand using intellectual property will go a long way. And so does that help?
No, it does completely. I mean, but you see the importance of this, because if someone is going to have a clothesline, or someone is going to have a logo, or someone is going to try and copyright a phrase or something they do, you're going to have someone like Raymond be able to handle that for you.
Yeah, I need him with my clothesline. And you started talking about protecting your voice as well. How long is your intellectual property protected?
So as long as you're using it, I'll back up. It depends. So trademarks, which are the protection of your brands. Copyrights are works of authorship that are on a tangible platform or media. Patents, which are inventions that you're given rights from the United States Patent Office. Those things have varying different timelines for how long they're protected, but we'll talk about the most common ones here for athletes, your trademarks and your copyrights. So for trademarks, as long as you're using the mark in commerce, you're going to have protection. For copyrights, it's a long time. It's 75 years that you can have these things. And so it varies depending on what you're trying to get protected, but generally trademarks and copyrights, as long as you're using them.
And how do you... Like, this has to be so new in the industry, because, I mean, I remember in year one, we did a deal with a University of Alabama softball player, the first NIL deal our law firm did, and I was negotiating with her dad, and I remember her dad saying, look, this is all new. I don't know. I think you go through me. I don't think you have to go through the university. But boy, has this changed from an IP perspective, too.
Yeah, it certainly has. I mean, you're dealing with folks who they don't have access to this. Most people don't really talk about intellectual property every day. And so when you're an athlete and you're coming into this space, like I said earlier, recognizing that you're a brand now and treating yourself as a brand, it's important to go out, talk to an attorney, understand what you can do with your IP, even to the extent of coming up with a strategy as you continue to grow as an athlete, figuring out if you want to protect your name or if you want a signature logo. Getting those things protected up front can help as you go out into the community and you grow your brand.
We don't have a lot of time, about 40 seconds left, because we're close. Where do you see this going, Madison? Where does this all go?
That's a great question. I don't think any of us really know. I think that we're going to probably have to see some sort of federal legislation, because I think we've seen that the institutions trying to figure it out on their own, it's probably just not going to work, because it's just going to lead to another string of antitrust lawsuits. So I think we're going to hopefully see some federal legislation come across our desk pretty soon.
Raymond, Madison, Fortiff, good group. Glad y'all are on.
Thank you so much.
On behalf of our guests and, of course, this guy right here, and for everyone at Hollis Wright, we thank you for joining us, and we look forward to you joining us again next week, same place.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.